Hey guys, what is going on? I did not save this yet. I'm gonna save this. Download image. Open file. Gallery, just once. There we go. I should have started with this on the screen. That's what I did for my last video. That is what we're gonna do for this video. So welcome to 23.0 tier list. This is all the legendaries. This is incredibly interesting. Getting rid of all of the commons, rares, and epics, and focusing solely on what are the best legendaries made this tier list incredibly interesting. Because I have the ability to space this a little bit differently, you'll notice that there's not really bad cards. There is an F tier, and it's of the worst legendaries that I don't think that you should ever use, as of currently right now in 23.0. It's just the worst of the worst, but you'll notice it goes up from there. It's like A tier. Which is A tier. It's very strong. But then because this game is so, top heavy, there is S++, S+, S, and then A tier. And that is to say that everything is very, very good. The S++ is a new category. I am going to go into it, but this is the legendary side of my tier list. If you want to go find my commons, rares, and epics for the rest of the cards, you can go check that out. But without further ado, here we go. So I want to talk about A Friend Gaming has a video. Go watch it if you don't understand how percentage damage works, but I'm going to spend a lot of this video, or at least this first part, talking about percentage damage. He has a video on his channel titled 408 trillion damage, where, spoiler alert, he does 408 trillion damage. You can go watch the video, and essentially, this was when Corsair was the best thing in the world. It's when cards maxed out at 12. That's why his Corsair is only, quote unquote, only a level 12. That is why his crit percentage is only 3,406. This was a very long time ago, when Corsair was one of the best, was the best card in this game. Corsair does percentage damage, Executioner kills at percentage damage, and everything else was to build upon upgrading the Corsair. It's when Gadget was the best hero, specifically because it gave you gold tiles and because it gave you increased attack speed, and you didn't have to run a knight statue or a banner. Jay did not have tiles. He's not using Scrapper because Scrapper didn't even exist yet. The simple idea was that Corsair did percentage damage based on a percentage of health. So it did essentially what it does now, but it did, of course. It essentially does what it does now, but the amount of bombs that you could produce was much higher. That was one of the things that they nerfed about Corsair when it was doing 408 trillion damage. The reason why it was able to do that amount was because he was doing a mirror match, and the other person was playing the exact same deck. That is the only time you will ever actually figure out the potential of a specific damage dealing card. When you go into worldwide, replays, and you see different decks, you'll see this Spirit Master deck did 2.4 billion damage, which sounds like a lot. But that only means that the Tesla deck could only do 2.4 billion damage. That is not a judgment on how much the Spirit Master deck can do, because as you can see next to it, a Spirit Master versus Spirit Master, essentially a mirror match, he did 56 billion damage. The only time you can test whether the potential of a deck is if you mirror match it with the same deck. Those are the battles that you should be looking at. And if not, you'll never see the true potential of a specific deck. There was I shared it in my clan. Hopefully it's still there. I specifically did it so that I could reference it. This was a Genie deck that did 112 billion damage against a mirror match Genie deck with far less crit. He had 6746 crit. The other person had 4617 crit. And at 4617 crit, he was still able to do 112 billion damage. I don't normally like placing units that come out, like Genie came out yesterday, mostly because there's not a lot of data to go by. But I think that's enough. I think a level 15 Genie versus a level 15 Genie doing triple digit billion damage numbers, I think that's enough data. That's enough data for me. Hopefully that's enough data for you. But going back to my percentage damage speech, Corsair very specifically does percentage damage. He has the ability to throw bombs. As soon as I can find it. Oh, here we go. He has a chance to throw a nasty bomb, and at max, it has the ability to do, what is that, 23% damage? Does that increase with anything else? It has the ability to do 23% damage of their current health. Obviously, with multiple Corsairs on the field, throwing a large quantity of bombs, that 23% damage from current health is 7%. Is it 7%? Is that how it works? Am I reading the wrong thing? Chance to throw damage from current health. Is it 8%? It has a 23% chance to deal. Is it 8%? Did they change it to 8%? That can't be right, right? That removes, the damage it removes 8% of their current health. They had to have changed those numbers. I feel like it used to do a bigger percentage than that before. And that was one of the things that they had to nerf. It was the fact that it was throwing so it has a 26%. So it currently has a chance, a much lower chance of throwing nasty bombs, which are the bombs that do percentage damage. And I'm pretty sure they nerfed the percentage damage number, because I believe it used to be much higher. Demon Hunter was another one that, before it had talents a long time ago, all you had to do was have 4 level 7 Demon Hunters and an Executioner on a banner, and you basically just beat the game. Because originally, Demon Hunter did, at level 7, it took percentage damage health away. And you had the ability to do infinite co-op as well, back when co-op was infinite. It currently has an 8%, it takes away 8% of their current health. And that is, the more nasty bombs that are on the field, in terms of a boss, that is how quickly they can instantly die. But the way that they decided to nerf this, as well as nerfing the actual unit, was they have double bosses and triple bosses, and you just can't throw enough bombs quick enough in order for a Corsair deck by itself to work anymore. But that's not to take away the fact that percentage damage will always work, because you always have 100% of your health. If that health is 100 health or 1 billion health, you have 100% of your health. And if you can make that 100% go to 0%, you die. And that, again, that is the same if you have 100 health or 1 billion health. If you take 8%, if you take 50% of 1 billion health, then take another, what's it called? You keep taking away percentages of health. Eventually, an executioner will kill it, because an executioner works off of percentage as well, and that at max is 40%. They have the ability to take if a unit is at 42% less, 42% health or less, it auto kills it. And so all you have to do is essentially 50% of their health, and then, or 60% of their health. If you can take away 60% of a unit's health, a executioner will take away the other 40% and insta-kill it. And that health, again, is the same if the monster has 100 health or 1 billion health. It's 100% of health. So if you understand how health percentage works, and why percentage damage is so good, my picks for the S++ tier, it's going to be Meteor, Minotaur, and Corsair. These 3 cards are insane. It's the percentage damage that a meteor does, is crazy. I have to bring up, I'm going to bring up Meteor so I can talk about that. And I really want to stress why I think that this is an S++ tier. It is the best deck. Percentage damage decks will always beat regular damage decks. Because where 100 damage is very easy to kill, 1 billion damage is very difficult to kill. 5 billion damage, a 5 billion damage monster is much harder to kill. A 10 billion damage monster is much harder to kill. A 100 billion damage monster is incredibly difficult to kill. And a percentage damage deck does not care, because it's doing 100% of health. It's working on a different realm. We are all playing 3D chess, trying to determine whether or not Riding Hood is better than Demon Hunter, or Genie is better than Riding Hood, or who can deal damage quicker, or who can build up stacks to keep up with the health of the waves. Percentage damage decks don't give a fuck. And it's insane to me. I recently saw Daddy Denzel. He is. I was trying to look for a replay of a battle that he did, because he was just beating everybody yesterday. He went up against Carl Granis, who is one of the top players in this game. If you go into worldwide records and you look up battles, he's one of the names that you'll see all the time. Him, Aleppo, Muck, like some of the top players in this game that constantly are in the top. He is one of them. And this guy beat Carl Granis, his Demon Hunter deck. He had a maxed out Demon Hunter deck. He has 6k crit. Daddy Denzel beat him very outright at 200 billion. It was something crazy. It was something absolutely nutty. and it wasn't even kind of close. And I was trying to look to see if he had any more replays, and he doesn't, because he has the most trophies. He literally has the most trophies in this game, and this is what he's playing. It's Meteor, Frost, Portal Mage. Portal Mage. The interaction between Portal Mage and Frost is insane. Small Shamer allowed me, explained it to me. And the reason why this is crazy is because of two abilities. Vulnerability. Whenever you teleport a monster, the crit damage will be 20% less. They will deal... The teleported monsters will... the opponent will deal 20% less damage to a teleported monster. And when you stack this, because yes, it does stack with Ice Shield, where when you merge a Frost with the Mark of Ice, it protects monsters from 40% of damage. They are being protected by 60% of damage. Now, this doesn't matter when you're dealing like infinite damage early game, but that's not what this deck cares about. This deck cares about getting to the latest game possible, because like I said, what this deck does is it does percentage damage, and that is its main focus and how it kills things. It kills things because it can deal 100% of a monster's health in damage, in percentage damage. So whether the monsters are at 1,000 health or 5 billion health, it does the same. It has the same game the whole time. It constantly does meteor damage. With Meteor, you have Burning Comet. It insta-kills common monsters in a small area, and it damages bosses for 20% of their health per merge rank. It auto-kills all common monsters. The only problem that this deck even kind of has are against bosses and mini-bosses. And against bosses, it doesn't care about most bosses. In fact, I think the only boss that it cares about is a Kitsune. And that's only because it has the ability to spawn more bosses. Because this deck would rather wait for all 3 bosses to appear, no matter what they are, and just auto-meteor them, and they all take the same amount of percentage damage until the person kills all 3 at the same time through percentage damage. It actually is worse if you try to kill each boss individually, because then you have to send that many more meteors to deal 100%. If all 3 bosses are on the field at the same time, you can send all of your meteors and it kills all 3 bosses. Kitsune is the worst boss because it summons more bosses, and that's the worst problem that it can have. If the bosses spread out too much to where your meteors aren't hitting all 3, that's literally the only way it dies. Because beyond that, between the Burning Comet, the Falling Star, and then Magma Surge, causing another explosion at the point of impact, dealing damage equal to 15% of the missing health. So as soon as it deals damage, percentage damage, it then leaves a magma on the field to deal 15% more of the missing health in damage. Which is, again, percentage damage. It works universally forever. So when you get... What this deck does is it gets to super late game to where you're using Mari to summon like a 5 billion damage, monster as soon as they get a problematic boss. As soon as they hit a Bedlam, a Warlock, an Assassin, a King Pudding, a Dark Priest, anything that is even kind of remotely problematic for them, you summon in Amari. As soon as you can teleport monsters when they can't out damage regular common monsters that are in the waves. You use Portal Mage to teleport monsters because you're not killing as quickly. Portal Mage doesn't work if you kill things instantly, but because this deck is specifically killing things with Meteor you want more things on the field. So every single time this deck looks like it's gonna die, it has the ability to just single Meteor, wipe the field, or Portal Mage most of the field, sending it to your opponent, and then those monsters now have take 20% less crit. You can time your Frost to do Ice Shield on them so that they take 60% less crit, at which point you're giving them a bigger boss. You're giving them a bigger health boss, at which point you can then use Mari to give them a bigger, unit that they then have to kill first. And then you can take out all of your bosses with Meteor, all at the same time. This deck has no problems. It doesn't care about any boss. In fact, it actually likes getting bedlammed. Tribunal doesn't do all that much to it. Warlock, that's fine. I can just summon in a new monster. Like Dark Priest, oh no, I have to merge stuff out? Who cares? You're not doing damage in the traditional sense of attacking. You're just merging meteors out and you win. This deck just wins. Most of the time, I can tell you, like, what's a good card? Like, what does more damage? What has more stacks? What can stack faster, right? I can tell you that this damage dealer will beat this damage dealer. I don't know how this deck loses. It doesn't lose to Clock. Like, usually a Clock can beat, a Clock deck can beat a damage dealing deck. This does Clock, and you can run Clock. This deck doesn't care. It's not attacking. If anything, it helps this deck because then it's attacking even less so that Portal Mage works more. I don't like, and then Mari is also infinite damage because it always eats common monsters. And then it's also giving you mana so that you can summon more. And then you have like Summoner. Like, this deck is absolutely insane. And I think you have to understand why I'm putting this in its own category. I didn't know how to classify it. I didn't know how to classify where to put these cards because they don't work on its own. They don't work on their own. You can't just build like a Meteor deck or a Minotaur deck or a Corsair deck. You have to build, like, it's a very specific deck that you have to build. But if you build that deck, you can run this game. And I don't understand why more people don't do this. It is, in my opinion, it is the best deck in this game. And I feel like more people should be running this. But I think the fact that more people aren't running this is why they're not nerfing Meteor or Minotaur. They don't need to nerf Corsair. They've already nerfed it enough. And that was so that it wouldn't do 408 trillion damage anymore. But I'm telling you, like, this deck, it has no weaknesses. It just keeps pressing against everything. It doesn't care about so many things. It doesn't care about most bosses. It doesn't care about damage dealing decks. It doesn't care about toxic decks. Like, it doesn't care about Clock. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I can normally tell you how a deck loses. I don't know how this deck loses. Yeah. So that is my pick for S++. It is a category on its own. It is anything that can deal percentage damage it's always going to be the best in this game. It will forever be the best in this game because it can deal infinite damage. Now that we've like gone off of, that entire world, that entire other, like, we're all playing 3D chess, and that deck is playing 4D chess. If I want to go back to regular Rush Royale, you know, the damage-based regular Rush Royale, the boring version of Rush Royale, these are the S+ cards. Which, number one, with a bullet, the nerf doesn't matter. It is the best card. I just talked about percentage damage, which not only gives all of your units increased damage by just existing on the field, but the second ability to insta-kill monsters is insane. That is why witch decks that have like level 15 witch decks, it's why most pros are now using witch. Being able to knock out a tile on your opponent just by having witch, and them having to not be able to use a tile for the rest of the game, has the ability. It has the ability to lock out an opponent. If they have a Zeus tile, if they have a growth tile, and your witch level, is it the level 15 ability? I think it's the 13 ability. 13? I'm pretty sure it's 13. The Circle of Curses. If your Circle of Curses lands on one of their important tiles, they can't use that tile for the rest of the game. They can try. It's probably not advisable to get a level 7 on that tile that's, you know, on a growth tile or whatever. But that will lock out one of their tiles. Witchfire is not... It is a thing. Unstable Magic is one of the reasons why you're using it. Gift of the Raven is the exact reason why you're using it, and that gets better with higher level witch. But the Unstable Magic, being able to insta-kill, I want to say 2 additional targets, is crazy. Being able to insta-kill monsters is another thing, like percentage damage. It always works. Whether you're insta-killing 100 health monsters or 5 billion health monsters, you are insta-killing up to 2 targets per witch that is above a level 3. It's crazy. That, being able to insta-kill waves pushes you so far, so much further than you will ever go if you don't have witch. It's the number one support card that if you have a high level witch, you have to use it. Summoner. The level 13 and the level 15 ability is why it's so good. Most people used to run Harlequin. It used to be Harlequin Dryad every single deck. But as soon as they gave talents to Summoner, and they gave Summoner not only a replacement ability, because you will be using it for the replacement ability. It doesn't matter that it doesn't give you an extra unit. You will still use the replacement ability over multiple summoning. But that's not even the reason why you're using it. And it's not the 11. The 11 is fine, but it's the 13 and the 15. Giving your entire board better crit percentage, better attack is just... You're just adding another support unit that already does something on its own, but it also does something extra. The reason why Dryad is so much better than Scrapper can get your entire board to level 7. Dryad can do it, but it takes a very long time. Dryad is better because of Fairy of Rage. The Fairy of Rage ability to give your board 50% extra damage means that it's a support card that also increases your damage. Scrapper doesn't increase your damage, it just increases your board size. You can increase your board size with Dryad and increase your damage with Dryad. It's another way of gaining damage through a support card that is already doing something else. It's doing multiple things, and that is why the best support cards are going to be multiple function. They have to have talents. If Scrapper gets talents, it might be in the conversation of becoming an S+ card. But because it doesn't, and it only levels up units, Dryad's a better way of leveling up your units because it is also gaining you attack damage. Enchant Sword. The reason why Enchant Sword is so good is because you are either going to be using Enchant Sword and Witch, or you are going to be using Witch and Knight Statue. And you can't use, you're obviously not supposed to use Enchant Sword with Knight Statue because you get ×5 less, but you will be using either. You will either be using Enchant Sword and Witch, or you will be using Witch and Knight Statue. And for that reason, I feel like, like Eternal Gaze is also like a very good up on Enchant Sword. It's a very good thing to be able to just leave on the field and then just splash your board just every single boss round. And with your best decks, you will be getting into double bosses, triple bosses. You will go up against a lot of bosses for your Eternal Gaze to keep working over and over and over. Knight Statue is probably the worst of the equipments, but that's not to say that it's bad. In fact, the fact that it was able to push into S+ is a big up on Knight Statue, and most of that reason is the current 23.0 change to it, where if you have 4 units around your Knight Statue, it attacks every second. That change is giant for this. It also does 25% armor destruction, which is also insane for it. And the fact that it has the ability to be slotted into so many different decks. You can run it in a Spirit Master deck as Covenant of Veteran with Scrapper, and it's great. You can run it as a Sharpened Spear in Riding Hood, and it's great. The fact that you can... The Sharpened Spear gives it so much versatility that you have the ability to run it in a deck without Scrapper. And that is a big up on it. In terms of damage dealers, I think that because of the nerf to Demon Hunter, I think Riding Hood has edged out Demon Hunter. I do still think that Demon Hunter is still very strong. And then I obviously, Genie in this mirror match, 113 billion damage game. I do think Genie is also very strong. Spirit Master, I don't feel like I need to talk about any of these cards. You've seen these cards. If you haven't seen these cards, go into Worldwide, understand why all of these cards are good. These are your best top tier damage dealers in this game. Most of them are event units. Riding Hood, Genie, Spirit Master, but the fact that Demon Hunter is in there as well as one of the best damage dealers is, I think, a very good decision on Rush Royale's part. They could have made it to where the best units in this game are just event units, but I do think that Demon Hunter is still very strong. In terms of S-tier cards, these are all still incredibly strong. Frost, as I just previously mentioned, the ability to give your opponent 40%, all of their monsters take 40% less damage, is incredibly good. Oh my god. The Ice Shield ability is incredibly good. But the main reason why you're using it is obviously the Frost King. Being able to freeze out units just passively, just having it exist on the field and freezing out units is very, very good. Which can eventually win you the game. Chain of Ice is very strong. The idea that you can... have it do double time with Cold-Blooded is very strong. You can have Ice Shield for 12... it's by 33%. I don't know what that equates to. 6%? Maybe it's like 10%? 9%? Maybe it's like 9%? Or 9 seconds? It might be 9 seconds. But the fact that it can be longer is just better. And then Chain of Ice, being able to freeze out bosses, being able to freeze boss abilities is incredibly strong, obviously. Whenever you merge out Frosts, it's very good, but it's also very high end. Like you need a level 13, level 15 to even notice change in Frost. But when you do get it to 15, it becomes very, very good. Another card that becomes very, very good at level 15 specifically is Banshee. There are some Banshee decks that are out there, and there was for a time a Corsair Banshee build where they were using Banshee's main ability, the level 15 ability, to freeze out bosses as well. And then it gave the Corsair deck more time to throw bombs. But Banshee as a support unit is very strong, specifically at level 15 when it can freeze out at activation boss abilities. You used to be able to do this with Bombardier, but now that you can't, Banshee at level 15 is the only way to basically do it, unless you want to merge out Frosts. But Banshee at level 15 is just more... it's easier to do. It's obviously easier to do because it's just an activation that you can activate at will. Clock, I don't think I need to talk about this, but again, it's yet another card that is very strong at level 15, because if you have it at anything lower, it only does the one thing, and so it's going to be doing it worse at level 7, as opposed to if you have a level 15. If you have it at level 15, you can shut down decks. Obviously not the percentage damage deck, obviously not a Banshee deck, but any deck that just deals damage, Riding Hood, Demon Hunter, Genie, you can reduce their attack speed so much that you can theoretically kill them by just using clocks. There's an idea that somebody was trying to build a DPS flicker deck and just using clocks on their field and leveling up a field of clocks and just using flicker as their DPS. I think that that's hilarious. The idea that could actually be a deck is so funny to me. But that is how strong clock is. Harley Quinn is very good because of the redundancy. Last tier list, I think I had it in S+. It is not an S+ card anymore. The fact that it doesn't have talents to give it any additional edge, it doesn't give you any additional benefit other than redundancy. Redundancy is not good enough anymore. Not at high level anyway. The idea that Summoner can give you crit percentage and attack damage as well as redundancy makes Summoner infinitely better. If Harley Quinn had a talent ability that said every time you copy a Harley Quinn, your field gets plus 1% attack damage. Every single time. You get plus 1% attack every time you copy, you get a stack that gives you your field plus 1% attack. Then it would be in a conversation of, is it an S+ card? But because it doesn't, and it only does the one thing, it's just simply not good enough anymore to make it an S+ card. It is still a very good card, which is why I still have it in S. I'm just saying that the reason why it's not higher is because it doesn't have talents. As soon as it gets talents, if it gains an extra ability to support your other units, if it gets stacks in some kind of way, if it does something else, then it might become an S+ card again. Sea Dog took a really big hit this patch. The Ghost going from 2 to 1 and from 3 to 2 is a really big hit on it. The explosion damage, having a delay, instead of being like a 2-second delay, I think it's like a 5-second delay, puts it on the likes of Shaman. And spoiler alert, it makes it considerably worse. I think that it's still probably good. I don't think that it is like one of the best anymore. The reason why it was so good before was simply because of being able to ghost 2 things and then 3 things whenever you hit a rare treasure. And now that you can't do that, I don't know if it's good. It's still okay. And with Frost and in that Necromancer type Toxic deck, it is still going to be your premier Toxic card. And you're still going to use it, and it still deals decent damage. But the major reason for why it existed has been taken away. Robot is great, but I think that Robot by itself is a little bit less good than a Sea Dog. And the reason why is because Robot by itself doesn't do a lot, but Robot Clock, Robot with something else, it does do a lot. Whereas Sea Dog kind of works on its own. It's a Toxic card and it deals a lot of damage. Robot just kind of deals a lot of damage, but its Toxic element of stunning a monster or stunning units for like 1 second, it doesn't come into play enough. Whereas like if you Sea Dog the right unit, and you hit like a rare treasure, you could like lock them out of the game. Robot, you can't really do that. You have to pair it with like a clock, and at which point it does do a lot, and it has a lot of damage because it can go into 80 stacks. But beyond that, I think that it's very fairly placed right here. Monk is still very strong. Pro people use Blessing as opposed to Equilibrium. I think the lower you are in it, like if you don't have like a level 15 summoner, if you don't have a level 15 witch, you're probably going to use Equilibrium and think that that's the best thing ever. Whereas pro players know that you can't just have a field full of monks and rely on that. You have to run support cards. At which point the better build is Equilibrium, Blessing, because you can power up the one thing, and just keep powering up the one thing. Pro players used to do it with Dark Inquisitor. They do it, with, Demon Hunter using, I was going to say Absolution of Evil. What is that called? Again, it's going to bother me if I don't know. Absorption of Evil. They do it with Absorption of Evil. They do it with Riding Hood. They are used to building up one unit over the course of the game. And so they will totally build the one centerpiece. And they will like get it to like 200 stacks, 300 stacks. The Monk Blessing, where you're just building up the one monk in the center, and then using support cards to support that one card, is the much better version of the monk deck. But again, that also comes with the idea that you have to have level 15 summoner. You have to have like a level 15 witch. And that is the reason why it's so high. I think Equilibrium would probably be in the tier down. And if you're running Monk Blessing, you probably know how to run Monk. Inquisitor got a buff. I don't know if it's good enough. They have nerfed Inquisitor so many times because Inquisitor used to be an S+ card. I think the buff helped it get into S, but I don't know if it's good enough. I don't know if the attack speed and the damage that it can output with a J, with a Sharpened Spear Knight statue, I don't think if it's enough if it's fast enough or if it's enough to take down, to go into the hundreds of billions of damage, because that is the gauge for S+. You have to be able to hit hundreds of billions of damage, not 50 billions of damage, not 80 billions of damage. You need to do like hundreds of billions of damage to be an S+. And I don't think Inquisitor is able to do that. I do think that Cultist is on the verge of being an S tier card. It does very strong damage in the same way that Tesla does. I don't know if either can efficiently do hundreds of billions of damage. I know that they are able to put up very solid numbers, maybe in the double billions of damage, in the doubles of billions of damage. Both of them. I think they're both very close to being S tier cards. And that's why I put them at the top above my pick for A tier equipment or A tier support cards. Scrapper, like I previously said, it doesn't have talents, and there are an infinite number of support cards that you would take over a Scrapper. I feel the same way about Trapper. Trapper is essentially just at this point, a very bad witch. Trapper is a better chemist, but it's a very bad witch. You would just rather invest into a level 15 witch as opposed to a level 15 Trapper. Trapper used to be good, but again, it doesn't have talents, and so it only does the one thing. If it does extra things with talents, we might be able to have a conversation and it might move up. But for now, I think a lot of people there's so many support cards in this game, and there's only so many slots that your deck can hold. Like, you want Witch, you want Summoner, you want Dryad, you want Enchant Sword, you want Night Statue. And then when you have space, you want Frost, you want Banshee's activated ability, you want Clock. There are so many, you want Harley Quinn. There are so many things that you want, that it makes Trapper like a 7th place pick. You will pick so many things. You should be picking so many things above Trapper that you shouldn't have space for Trapper in your 5-card deck. And that's why it's so low. And in terms of the last 2-place legendary damage dealing cards, I picked Bruiser over Blade Dancer because at the very least, Bruiser has been in the meta. Blade Dancer has never been meta ever. Blade Dancer has never been good enough to where everybody wants to play Blade Dancer. I have a Bruiser video on my channel, in one of my playlists, like ridiculous PvP matches, where Bruiser is putting up insane hundreds of billions of damage in a battle, and nobody has ever done a Blade Dancer battle where Blade Dancer does hundreds of billions of damage. I do think Bruiser has drastically fallen off, and most people don't use it. They would rather use any of these other above offense cards. But I do think that Bruiser is above Blade Dancer simply because at some point it was meta, and Blade Dancer has never been meta. In terms of F tier cards, Boreas is fun to play with. It's fun on a J tile. It's fun with Grindstone, but you're basically never going to use it ever again. Shaman has no talents, and it has a 5-second delay. And Mermaids exist, and Cleansing exists, and Counter Spells exist. I don't think Shaman is good at all anymore. I don't understand its usage when there is so much prevention because there's so much there's so many things that can deal negative effects. People don't even use Witch for the Witch ability anymore. They're using it for the damage ability. They're using it for Gift of the Raven, and there's a reason for that. Shaman is even worse. Shaman, you have so much reaction. You have so even if it, blows past your mermaid, even if it hits a unit that doesn't have the ability to cleanse itself, you still have 5 seconds of time to do something about it. You can merge it out, and they just had to sacrifice 2 units to do nothing. Shaman is not good at all anymore. And I think that putting it in your deck just makes your deck worse. And you should instead of trying to -1 your opponent by -2ing yourself, because you're wasting 2 summon-ins to summon it in. Especially now that Summoner, the replacement effect doesn't give you an extra unit for you to take advantage of. Because you're -2ing yourself to hopefully -1 your opponent, just put in anything else. Increase your own damage. Like, don't rely on trying to lock your opponent out. It's a terrible way to try. Frost is better, Sea Dog is better, Snowflake is better, Necromancer is better. Everything else that they don't have the ability to react to is better. There's too much reaction time with Shaman. Hex, I don't feel like I need to talk about. It doesn't have talents. It doesn't do its job efficiently. Demonologist, I don't see anybody use. And Stasis, I see even less people use. Slowing the field, there are better ways to do that. Frost is one of them. Portal Mage is one of them. There are just so many other ways to slow the field that I don't think Stasis has any place. But yeah, that's my tier list. Let me know how wrong you think I am in the comments, so that I can boost my engagement on this video. I will fight you in the comments. But thank you guys for watching. And I look forward to 24.0, where they will probably add more talents and a new overpowered event unit that will get